Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I then send along to mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and the testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I will also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. A recording, and actually a video recording as well, is being made of tonight's proceedings, and if requested, a transcript will be prepared. In addition, Planning and Development Services will post the video on their website within several days after tonight's hearing. With that in mind, when I call on you to testify, I would ask you to please speak clearly. I always try to do that myself. I don't always succeed. And begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. So what happens after tonight's public hearing is first I prepare a preliminary report within 5 business days. And then I prepare a final report within 5 days after the preliminary report. A copy of the final report will be available from the Planning and Development Services Department, and it's also posted on the website. And I send the final report to the mayor and council. At the scheduled public hearing on the case, the mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation, along with other factors. We'll proceed in the following fashion tonight. I'll first call the case, and then I'll ask Mr. Peter McLaughlin from the Planning and Development Services Department to present the staff report. I'll then ask to hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative, and then I'll ask to hear from anyone else in the audience who would like to be heard. So let's go ahead and start. Tonight's case is case C9-2208 McNew Golf Links Road. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes, this is a request by Lazarus and Sylvan, PC, on behalf of the Property Owned Investments, LLC, to rezone approximately 1.12 acres of a larger 3.8 acre parcel from C1 to zoning to allow construction of a tire shop with an office upstairs. The proposed automotive major services and repair use requires C2 zoning. The rezoning site is vacant land located on the south side of Golf Links Road, approximately 600 feet east of Pantano Parkway. And the proposed development includes a 8,520 square foot commercial structure with 8 service bays, required parking and landscaping. The preliminary development plan proposes a 2-story building with a height of 30 feet. The South Pantano Area Plan and Pantano East Area Plan and Plan Tucson support commercial development at the rezoning site. Project design can properly buffer existing residences and preserve the character of the neighborhood. Plan Tucson also supports the retention of job community. The proposed project develops a vacant site fronting on a major arterial street and provides landscaping that incorporates water harvesting techniques and orients vehicle tire installation and repair services, site lighting, and noise generating uses away from residential use to the south. Staff has included preliminary conditions to address noise, lighting, screening, and buffering, as well as limiting hours of operation to between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and restricting building heights to no more than 30 feet. A plan amendment is not required. And subject to compliance with preliminary conditions, staff recommends approval of the requested C2 zoning. And as of today, staff has received 2 approvals and 4 protests on this request.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Would the applicant like to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Urino, this is Rory Juneman with Lazarus and Sylvan, 5983 East Grant Road in the city of Tucson. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, I can very well. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I want to make a few introductions before I get started. With me from Lazarus and Sylvan is Robin Large, who's our senior planner.
Good evening.
And then from McNew Investments is Rusty and Peggy McNew, and you'll be hearing from Rusty here in a few minutes early on in the presentation. Are you okay if I go ahead and switch over to some slides?
Please go right ahead.
Okay. All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So just to review our agenda, I'll start off with giving some brief information about the property and the zoning, and then I'll have Rusty talk about his company. They have one existing Big O Tire on the far east side, and this is their second location. And I think it's just helpful to get him to sort of give you a little bit of background. Then we'll show you our PDP. We've revised it a little bit based on some of the conditions that were provided. I'll speak a little bit about noise and traffic and drainage, and then speak briefly about our neighborhood outreach and our preliminary conditions. So for the location, as stated in the staff report, we're on the south side of Golf Links, just a little bit east of Pantano Parkway intersection. We're part of a stretch of vacant land. There's an existing Circle K to our west, and then there'll be a vacant parcel next to us between the Circle K, and then some remaining vacant to the east. Although I don't suspect these vacant parcels will stay vacant for long. We've just heard that there's some interest in the other parcels. Don't know the specifics, but I think that there's not much vacant commercial land along Golf Link, so I doubt the area will stay vacant long. We do, as stated in the staff report, we do comply with the both Plan Tucson and the South Pantano Area Plan. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but I think our application and the staff report covered that compliance and conformance pretty well. So I won't take time in the presentation to do that. We are in an area really surrounded by C1 zoning, existing C1 zoning. So we're not asking for a rezoning to commercial. It's already a commercial area. We're just asking for a rezoning to C2 because of the tire service use is a major automotive use that requires C2 zoning. So that's really the reason for our request. But I at least did want to point out that we are in a commercial strip that future commercial businesses could come in on either side of us. Restaurants with drive-throughs, various commercial businesses like that could come in without rezoning. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rusty for a few minutes just to kind of give a background on their current operations and what they're really looking for in this new location.
Great, thank you, Rory. Hi, everyone. My name is Rusty McNew. Our current business location is at 10061 East Oldvale Road in Tucson. My wife, Peggy, and I got into this business back in September 2017. We signed an agreement with Big O Tires as a franchisee to develop 3 stores in the Tucson area. This one that we're speaking about now would be the second location. Our first store began construction in late May of 2018, and we opened it in September 2018. So we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary right now, and we think the time is right to do the expansion to our second location. We currently have about 14 employees at our operation on Oldvale Road. It's broken down. We have about 5 people in sales and management, 1 bookkeeper, and then 8 technicians and/or tire techs to take care of the cars that come through. We service about 30 cars a day on average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but if you just average it out, it's 30 to 32 cars a day. We are a general automotive shop and facility. This facility that we're looking to open would be the same, where we would take care of general repairs on automobiles, oil changes, shock struts, tune-ups, things of that nature, along with replacement of tire and repair of tires. We've put together a pretty solid team. Part of the team at the Old Vale facility would be transitioning over to this one, so we could have some continuity there. There's also some economies of scale, as this store would be roughly 20 minutes up Houghton Road and then Golf Links, of course, from our existing facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNew.
Yeah, thank you, Rusty. I do want to stress that that Rusty and his family, that they'll be owners and operators of this store. We'll explain a little bit about the office at this location. It'll be sort of their headquarters. So he'll be on site a lot of the times, and then your son's a manager, right? So
Correct. Thank you, Rory. It's our youngest son manages our current business on a day-to-day basis. The long-term plan would be for his role to continue to grow in the organization, and at some point it would be a generational change to him and his family. We intend to own the property. We don't want to just develop it and potentially sell it. Our plans are long-term, and we're looking to grow this and to be good neighbors with the neighborhood.
And in all our neighborhood meetings so far, he's offered to provide his phone number. He's and really made sure that to let everybody know that they'll be on site, and if there's any issues, to come straight to him. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't I move on to our site plan? So this is our preliminary development plan, PDP, that we submitted, but when we got the preliminary conditions from staff, we noted that one of the requests was to move the dumpster at least 50 feet from the southern property line. So our engineer had already been kind of working on the development package site plan, and so he incorporated that in. So we've adjusted this. I'll need to, this has kind of happened short notice, so I'll need to provide you an updated copy of this for the record, and I'll do that tonight or tomorrow and get that over to Mr. McLaughlin. But I'll go ahead and just kind of walk through our how the site functions based on this site plan. Starting off, all of our access is going to occur from Golf Links Road. Golf Links is a gateway arterial major road. It's got about over 28,000 average daily trips on it. So it's a very, very busy road. And really all of our access is going to happen onto Golf Links. Our project area is a little over an acre, and as Mr. McLaughlin said, it's currently vacant land. Once cars enter into the property, then we have just a circular drive access around the property. We've got parking on both east and west sides and a little bit on the north. We've got 28 parking spaces that meets code, and those 28 spaces don't include the eight vehicle bays where cars will be serviced. One of the requirements in the South Santana area plan was to have sort of off-street access between commercial buildings, and that's what we'll be providing here. So you'll see on the northeast corner of the property, it's designed to provide cross access to the east, And then we'll have a shared access, driveway access connecting the golf links with the property on the west. If you go over and look at an aerial at the Circle K, they have the same sort of situation where they've got a driveway access already connecting to the east. It's obviously blocked off now. But once all these parcels fill in, there'll be connecting access between all the properties, and we'll do the, actually, there's a cross-access agreement that's already kind of in the works to allow for that. We will be doing a 25-foot dedication for golf links. It's not at its full future right-of-way width, so part of the rezoning will provide that 25 extra foot of right-of-way on our north. So our site's really designed to accommodate that and contemplate that. The building is, Mr. McLaughlin said it's 8,250 square feet. The first floor of the building will include the waiting area on the north side, and then those eight bays, 4 on each side, 4 on the east, 4 on the west, the service bays to where the auto service will occur. And then our second floor is really limited to just the front third, the northern third of the building will be 2 stories. It'll be at 30 feet of height, and that's where our office will be, or Rusty's office will be, sort of for their business. But all the windows will point to the north and the east and west. There won't be any windows that are pointing south to the towards the homes. The bays will, as I mentioned, will face east and west, and that's important as we talk about noise a little bit later on in the presentation. We'll have a 38.5-foot setback to our southern property line, but then beyond that southern property line is another 5 feet before the fence to the south, so it really looks and feels more like about a 44-foot setback. And I'll talk a little bit more about that southern property line here in a minute. You'll see that we did move the dumpster from that was really adjacent to the residential on our southwest. We've moved that up. Here's the 50-foot line, so it's even a little bit farther than 50 feet. So that's where our trash dumpster will be, where we'll get trash service. And there's also a kind of an old tire recycling bin that'll be here as well. Although that's not serviced by like a trash truck, it's a much smaller truck that'll service that. But both of those will be located there on the west side, kind of in that same location, and both will be further than the 50-foot setback that's being suggested by staff. We'll have landscaping buffers throughout. I think it's almost a 9-foot buffer on the south, and then buffers on actually east and west, and then we'll meet the street side buffer. We're providing shade trees that'll meet the code requirements, both for street frontage and then for parking spaces as well. Now, I want to take a minute to talk about the south wall, because it's kind of a very unique situation. When we first did the initial site plan, we planned for an 8-foot wall on our southern property line. But then once we did a little bit more investigation with our survey and being out at the site, we realized that the homes that are to the south of us have a brick wall, what we thought was along the property line. But in actuality, those homes, the wall is built about 5 feet south of the property line. And so there's this 5-foot gap between our property line and the fence. And that 5-foot area is not common area. It's not owned by the HOA. It's actually owned by each individual homeowner. So when we had some early meetings with the HOA, everybody kind of agreed that for us to build an 8-foot wall next to another wall with a 5-foot gap was not really a situation that anybody wanted, with the possibility of creating kind of a space that there could be some unwanted activity. You might have some trespass and some, things happen there that nobody really wanted. It was agreed upon that the wall, not agreed upon, just sort of the general thought was the wall along those properties' homes would be the only wall that's really necessary there. But because we have that space that's not our property, we'd have to sort of work through how that area would be treated. The other thing is the homes to the south are actually built up about 2 feet. There was fill there that's about 2 feet higher than our grade. So while those homes have a 6-foot wall there, it actually, from our property, it functions more like an 8-foot wall, because from our grade, there's about 2 feet of fill. There's riprap in about that 5-foot gap that helps protect that fill and make sure that it's stabilized. And then there's an additional 6-foot wall. So what we kind of came up with through several neighborhood meetings was the conditions that we proposed, really the situation we proposed in our application, which are now in the preliminary conditions, which is that we're agreeable to raise the wall on the individual property owners' homes that are adjacent to us, obviously with their permission. And this is a suggestion of one of the adjacent property owners was, why don't you wait a period of time? We proposed 6 months, but wait a period of time to see if there really is a noise impact from the use. And if there is, then, and those property owners want the wall to be raised, then we would raise it about 18 inches at that time. Our only request is that we do that all at once, because we just don't want to have a contractor come out 3 or 4 or 5 times, however many neighbors want to choose that option. So the other condition is that we would maintain, again, with the neighbors' agreement, maintain that riprap area, but not remove any of the riprap, because we understand, our civil engineer is basically telling us, you don't want to move that because it's helped stabilizing that area and help protecting the wall from for the future. So we would landscape it to up to where there's riprap, and then where there's riprap, we just maintain it, make sure that it's cleaned up, no weeds, free of weeds and free of trash and that kind of thing. So and those conditions that that are the updated preliminary conditions state that, and we're obviously agreeable to those. So regarding any signage, the signage will be outdoor lighting compliant based on there's a curfew, and no signage would be pointed to the south. There's really no need for it, but none of the signage would be, the wall signage would be pointed towards the south. And we'd likely have a monument sign that's out towards the street, but that's away from the neighbors and out on the street where it's appropriate. Hours of operation, the 7 to 7 condition we're agreeable with, because Monday through Friday, they currently operate from 7 to 6 p.m. And then on weekends, they're open from 8 to 4 p.m., 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So with that, I'd like to show just a rendering of what the building's going to look like. Obviously, it doesn't have the wall in the back, but so you see that at the front portion is the 2-story portion where the office is up front, and then this is looking from the east, the 4 bays that are pointing to the east. So we knew early on that likely one of the concerns would be regarding the noise of the facility. So we hired a PhD local who does noise studies, Spinnerary and Willis, Lance Willis did the study for us. And essentially what he found was that that current 8-foot barrier is going to do a very good job on reducing the noise. But one of the primary parts of the noise study is that the noise is going to really go to the east and the west, and doesn't go really north and south as much. It goes straight out. And his noise study, what they did for the noise study is that he went out to McNew's existing facility on Old Vale and was able to sort of capture what the typical noise is at that facility. Now that facility has 6 bays that point one direction instead of 4 bays pointing in 2 directions. But based on that, he was able to get a good read of the noise generated from this use. If you saw the noise study, he set up microphones about 70 feet from the side of the building, pointing directly out. And another thing in the noise study that they found was that the noise from the bays really points directly is directed out to the east and to the west, right? Directly out from those bays. It doesn't point to the north and south as much. So he also did a study of this site that's vacant to get a background reading of the traffic noise there. And essentially what he found was the noise from the projected noise from this use will likely not even be greater than the road noise. And then he did this graphic to sort of show what the decibel readings are south of the wall and north of the wall in this area. And all of the noise levels south of the wall are well below the city's noise ordinance that has during daylight hours is 70 decibels. And here I think the maximum was just around 55, 56 decibels. So I think from a couple other things that the noise study suggested that Rusty will do, and they actually do this at their existing facility, is make sure that the air compressors are in interior closets, so they're closed off and really have no noise impact outside the building. And then they can work on operational procedures to make sure that horns, the blowing of horns and music is kept at a level that's not bothersome to the neighbors. So I also wanted, beyond noise, I also wanted to point out we provided a traffic study. It basically says that this use really isn't a heavy generator of traffic. The average daily trips that were determined by the traffic engineer at about 244 average daily trips. So fairly low, especially considering that the access is directly onto golf links and a very major street. And then drainage, really the drainage issues in this area can be handled just through some culverts that go towards Circle K. There's some existing culverts at Circle K that direct water out towards the wash. So those should be easily handled through at our street frontage. And then there's no drainage issues to the south because that property's about 2 feet above what our grade is. So all the drainage is really going to flow towards golf links and then out towards the wash. All right. So just to review kind of our neighborhood interactions, very early on, we held a preliminary meeting with the Mesquites at Pantano, which is the neighborhood to our south, with their HOA leadership, just to introduce the project and kind of get their initial feedback. One thing we did hear from that was that they were kind of encouraged about development in this strip, in this area, just having it developed as something because of there's been some issues with some trespassing and trash in that area, and that they thought that they knew it was commercial, and that having it developed would overall be a positive thing. Then we held our formal neighborhood meeting on May 16th. We had about 13 attendees. That's when the discussions about the wall kind of really started up, and where we heard that having two walls was probably not something anybody wanted, but we needed to maybe figure out some sort of a solution to, if the 8-foot wall is not tall enough, that how we can work around that. And then we had a follow-up Zoom meeting with it was about 6 to 8 neighbors that showed up on that, and we had a lot more discussions of the wall there, and that's sort of where we came up with the conditions that we proposed. We submitted on June 26th, and so that was, and now we're here today. So I did want to just mention those updated proposed conditions we are agreeable with, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tuman. I do have a couple. So the staff report referred to a requirement or a proposed requirement that noise abating mufflers be used with the automatic tools. Is that something that the applicant's willing to do?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so I'll just note that should be added to the conditions if we go forward. The second question I have is on the wall. So what happens if you get spotty approvals? Like every other property says, yeah, come on in, or, well, that's one concern. And the other concern is, I mean, I assume you've done outreach, I can see. So have you been in touch with each of the property owners along that northern stretch of that neighborhood? And do we know people are living there? Do you know how to get in touch with them? Because it would be, I mean, I like your solution because nobody wants to have two walls with dead space in between with possible use by trespassers, and that's a problem, I get that. But how are we going to get to, how, is there a problem? Meaning, do we know who the folks are who own all those properties, and are they agreeable right now? I see you've built in the time thing, which I think is a good idea, but.
Yeah, no, it's a tricky situation. I think our preference would be that if the HOA owned that as a common area strip and owned the wall, it would be easy, right? But because we have separate ownership, it's much more challenging. I think we haven't reached out to all of them. We've had some contact with some, but we haven't reached out to all of them yet. But we're happy to do that at the right point. But I think at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is that we might have the wall raised with some and not others. I think giving us some time to do that outreach will help with that, and hopefully when one neighbor sees that the other neighbor is getting a wall that's raised, they'll all sort of join in, but we can't force them to do it. So that's sort of why we have this written the way it is.
Okay. And then same question on the landscaping. I mean, it's great that the McNews and their company will take care of landscaping that area. That's a benefit to everybody. But what if you get the one person who you can't reach, right?
Yeah, and that's probably a little less concerning, because I think most of that 5-foot strip that's owned by the adjacent property owners is riprap. So we'd be planting up to that riprap, right, and maintaining it. But it still is, legally, we shouldn't be even maintaining or cleaning up trash if we don't have their approval. So it is a similar situation where, we're hopeful that they'll see that it only benefits everybody if we're allowed to clean up that area and maintain it. But we can't force them to do that. So
Sure.
it's a bit of a tricky situation for us.
Okay, then my last question is what's the building height in C1? Is it any different than C2? Or more to the point, would 30 feet be allowed in C1?
C1's 30 feet maximum, C2's 40 feet maximum, and we're putting the 30-foot maximum on this.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard? Now would be a good time. I see, I don't mean to call on people just because I can see your name. Mr. Young, are you looking for a way to unmute your device? Do you have a question or do you want to give some testimony? We'd be happy to hear from you if you do.
Well, I just have a few concerns actually myself. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Start with your address, sir. I have your name, Richard Young, correct?
Yeah, it's 8782 East Perry Park.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
We're kind of we're right in the mix of all that. And yeah, I'm glad to see they changed the dumpster location and all that, but I still have a major concern with the traffic that's going through there. I mean, we're gonna get, if you got 8 bays, you're gonna have a lot of traffic through there, which means it ultimately could be more trouble for this neighborhood, for more pedestrian travel and all that other riffraff that they're talking about. It could be more of an issue for this neighborhood. We already have people trying to break into our homes and stuff all the time, and having an establishment that deals with vehicles that have parked vehicles out there all the time. I just feel it's another concern of mine. The wall issue, I believe we should have an additional wall 2 feet. I think the building is too tall. I would like to see more vegetation put throughout the property, because we have trees and things of that nature right now that are probably going to get bulldozed over. But I mean, they're very established trees out there right now, and it's just going to be sad to watch them being torn out of there. But I understand it's a business. And the other thing is they're talking like rainwater being washed into the wash. Now people are trying to keep from hazards being dumped into that wash. They're trying to clean it up the best they can so we can have a flourishing wash. So animals and vegetation of that, I think it would harm the environment in the wash.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
I mean, you're dealing with a lot of rubber, a lot of chemicals. You're dealing with a lot of things, and you're saying it's going to get just washed off into the wash. That's not a good thing.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
Hi, this is Chris Fjell. My address is at 8759 East Perry Park Circle. I have some concerns as well about the noise, specifically about there's I guess muffling tools will be used to help suppress the sound. I don't really agree with just like something will be used. It's kind of like I've worked at previous jobs where we were told we will wash our hands before returning to work, and a lot of people didn't. And also to kind of like, I'm gonna back up Richard Young on his concerns about the environment. Like, I've been near other like auto care facilities, and like you can smell the tire from like you could smell like, I don't know if it's like the fumes or like mostly the rubber from like almost a couple blocks away. So I am also concerned about that as well. Another thing is, and so so for, and I'm just gonna kind of mention part of the zoning for this C1 to C2. There's another prospective builder that wants to put a car wash like next door to it. While there's already a car wash across the street, the point I'm getting to is if you look in our general area within a mile, there's at least 6 to 9 different auto care facilities, which include tire repair facilities in the area. I just don't feel like another car, like a tire repair facility, really adds anything to the community. I looked at the agenda that references related cases. It specifically points out a Brake Masters, which I looked at that on the map, and like I could see why that area could be rezoned for Brake Masters. If you look at the area, there's not a whole lot of like car care facilities in the area. So I don't feel it just doesn't really add any character to our neighborhood. And also with the sound issues is I'm not too convinced without actually being able to read the full hearing report that was conducted, or being able to like kind of go through it. I don't know what the pedigree of what was studied, or like what metrics were used. So in terms of like the sound that can be generated, I'm still very leery if like even with sound suppression tools, if it would not really come into our neighborhood in addition to like odors or like anything else.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case?
Yes, I would. This is Susan Nicholas, 8768 East Perry Park Circle. My main concern is the noise. Even though we're on golf links and it's pretty noisy, it kind of blends into the background. It's the quality of the noise that this project would bring that is wholly different from what we're experiencing now, because there are various and sundry noises associated with the tire shop. I've heard the staccato noises of tires being put on and taken off or whatever. And there's like gunshot type noises when they inflate new tires. I mean, there's all different kinds of noises. All noise is not the same. And to me, the noise that we're getting from golf links is something that I don't even hear that anymore. But I know a noise that breaks up, that's there one moment, not there another moment, is a whole different ball of wax. And the constant beeping of 30 cars, 32 cars a day going in and out of the bays is going to be, it's going to be very different. And I think it's going to be destructive to our peace and enjoyment of our neighborhood. And that's
Thank you, Ms.
mainly
Nicholas.
what I want to say.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard? Hearing no one, Mr. Jungmann, would you like to have the last word?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Urino. I think the first thing, it was actually a really good point that Richard and Chris brought up, was about environmental. And Rusty at their current shop and at this shop, they've got some pretty significant environmental requirements that they have to do. So I'd like him to just kind of walk through those. And those are designed to make sure to prevent exactly what the legitimate concern was of pollution running into the washes. So.
Yeah, I think, thank you for the opportunity. This is Rusty McNew to talk about that a little bit. In our current facility, there are drains that run inside the shop, just inside the doors, which are meant to capture, actually, frankly, when we're mopping the floors. And when you get a little bit of spillage, you do spill oil as part of the process. It's not large quantities, but it's some. There are cleaning chemicals that we use that sometimes reach the floor. And so we mop throughout the day, and we capture those in these long drains that run the length of the shop. and then go outside into a 1,400-gallon oil and chemical separator. This separates off the solids before the water is allowed to go into the sewer. As far as releasing chemicals outside the building, we can't do that. It's no longer allowed to spray chemicals into the air where they would wind up outside the building and could be washed off into the watershed. To date, we've had no issues with that particular problem at our Old Vale facility. Perhaps one other thing we could address, Lori, is the vegetation. I agree that we have some beautiful old growth trees on the property, and I think where possible, we should try to salvage those trees and replant them in such a fashion that it's aesthetically pleasing. So if we can salvage them, we will.
And on our site plan, we have some trees, but there wasn't really much other landscaping shown because it's early on. But we'll have full xeriscape landscaping on the property as well. So it won't just be those few trees. In those green areas, there will be landscaping. I did want to just mention there was Mr. Young had some concerns about traffic, but traffic and crime. Really, our traffic study shows that it's not a high traffic generator, but I think more importantly, none of this traffic is going to go into the residential neighborhood. It's all going to go out to golf links onto that existing major street. So there should be no need for anybody to get into this neighborhood. To get into this neighborhood, you've got to go around Pantano Parkway, and it's a roundabout way, and there's just no reason for anybody visiting the store would go into the neighborhood. Crime is an interesting thing. I think early on with the HOA, some board members, again, like I said earlier, they mentioned that this area is vacant and that's problematic, and I think that actual uses there would discourage trespassing and other issues related to that. And if there's sort of eyes on the area, that's likely going to decrease crime. Actually, Rusty had mentioned earlier before this meeting, we had sort of talked about what are the potential issues, and noise was a potential issue, and that's why he had gotten the noise study early on. But odor is never. That was one that you said that you really don't. There's not odor created at your store, right?
Not really. I mean, tires do exude an odor there, but it's not something that carries a great distance. There's, I think a couple other things here related to noise here is there's a number of things we can do if it is, from a procedural standpoint. Instead of blowing the car horns to enter and exit, we can have someone guide those cars in and out,
The horns are blown for safety to make sure people are looking around for the car backing out.
Exactly. It's so that people get awareness, raises their awareness that they're coming and going in there. And as far as a real high traffic count around the building, with the number of bays and employees that we have, we won't have many more cars than what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
We won't physically be able to do the work. So I think 30, 32, maybe 35 cars a day is what you're looking at there.
Mm-hmm. And from our noise study, we don't think the noise will be, based on that study, will be worse than the noise generated by golf links. But in case it happens to be, that's why we built in this condition that, after we're open, if there's an issue, then we're willing to help mitigate it. And I think probably more importantly on all, operational issues and things, the fact that Rusty is an owner operator and that And he's already been willing to give out his number when we had our neighborhood meeting, we invited people to come to his existing store to do a tour to see how it is. And I think you had some takers there.
We did. We had a few folks came by.
Yeah.
And,
So
and they're still welcome to come at any time.
yeah, I think he's shown a more than willingness to work with neighbors on any issues. So with that, anything else that you want
That's
to say?
all I have.
With that, I'm happy to answer any more questions you've got.
Yeah, I just have one more, Mr. Juneman. So, looking at the language that's proposed on the wall raising condition, I'm seeing that it says it'll occur 6 months of the issuance of the C of O to ensure the need for noise attenuation. I hadn't focused on that until I just heard those recent remarks. So is that a qualifier? I mean, is this conditional on the applicant deciding that there's a need for a raised up wall, or is that my bad reading of the language?
It might be my poor drafting of the proposed language. So the first sentence of that says, we will offer to each of the adjacent neighbors to raise the wall. And
Yes.
that second sentence is really just saying, we'd like, whether it's 3 or 6 months, a time period after we're open, just to see if there, from the neighbor's standpoint, if there's really a need to raise the wall.
Right, but it's not, you're not conditioning. If they say, yeah, we want the wall, you're not going to say, hey, we don't think you need it.
No,
No.
the need is on their perception, not
Right.
our perception.
Okay.
And we're happy to adjust that language to be more clear, or even just take out that, but,
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I want to say, I appreciate everyone's testimony at tonight's hearing, and I appreciate everyone's participation at the hearing. This process does not work unless people come out and explain how they view things and how they feel they'll be impacted by things. And that's true for the applicant as well. I very much appreciate your participation, both Mr. Juneman, Ms. Large, and the McNews. Your participation is very helpful. And with that, I'm going to close the hearing and take the matter under advisement. I'll be issuing my preliminary report in 5 business days. I hope everyone has a safe and happy evening. Take care.
thank you.
Thank you.